अच्छा मैं तो पावर पॉइंट देख सकता हूँ ना।
Now your sound is going in the live. So here you can see people have started joining, right? आप कुछ बोलिए.
हेलो गुड मॉर्निंग.
So here you can see people have started joining.
हेलो गुड मॉर्निंग. गुड मॉर्निंग टू यू.
It was just for testing purpose, but your sound is in.
अच्छा ये तुम्हारा मेल में साथ यू हैव टू कंट्रोल ना, क्योंकि वो जो मैसेज आएगा उसमें आएगा तुम्हारा
Just. Good morning to everyone. I welcome you all in this first session of the fifth day. This session is on a optional paper of B.Ed second year, that is BESC 135 ICTs for teacher education. And we have with us one of very senior professor from School of Education, Professor N.K. Das, who is also the course coordinator for this. So I welcome Professor Das in this session. And I request sir to start his session after 5 minutes. Let it class 1000, then you can start. 500 have already been. Today the number will be less because it is an optional paper. So we'll start at 10:35. Class 1000. Today the number will be less because it is an optional paper. So we'll start at 10:35. Class 1000.
well, good morning everybody. Today we are having a session for optional paper BSc 135, that is Information and Communication Technology. Before we start the presentation on this particular paper and the activities that they have been mentioned in your handbook, particularly WhatsApp 2 handbook. Let us understand what is the context of this activity. Though we are not going to talk in details about this course, BSc 135, and we hope that you have gone through this course thoroughly, all these blocks of this course, 4 blocks of this course. So we don't have to again revisit the details of this course. And for this 1 hour session, we'll mainly concentrate on this session and the 3 activities that we have mentioned for this session. What is the nature of this activity? How will you go about working on these activities? Then what is the output at the end of your engagement All these things we will discuss. You see, for this session, we have mentioned or we have given you three major activities that you are expected to do. And the first one is development, design and development of non-projected teaching learning resources. Then second activity is design and development of digital learning resources. Third activity is selection and integration of ICTs. So there are three activities, and all these activities, they are essentially centered around the concept of teaching learning resources. Now, what is this concept of teaching learning resources? Is it something new? As teachers, as teachers, you are engaged at secondary level, or you have already some experience of teaching at elementary level, you are very familiar with the concept of teaching learning resource in some form or other. Earlier, what we are talking of teaching learning resource nowadays, they were called as teaching learning materials, TLM. And much before that, when we are discussing about this teaching learning resources in earlier times, they were called as teaching aids, learning aids, or sometimes they are also called as teaching learning materials or audiovisual materials. To start with, they are called as audiovisual materials. Anyhow, during the course of time, things have changed, and all these things, they are clubbed under the broad concept of teaching learning resources. Resources which help a teacher to transact the learning experiences more effectively and efficiently. Let us understand what is meant by teaching learning resources. Teaching learning resources are tools which are used by teachers to help learners to learn concept with ease and efficiency. Just you read this first sentence. These are tools, just like a carpenter uses tools, different types of tools to give shape to the furniture, maybe a chair, or maybe a cut, or maybe a table. So it helps the carpenter to give shape to the chair. So this is very important. That is, it's some kind of means, or it can some kinds of help, or it means some kind of assistance that some object is giving the carpenter to realize his her goals or objective. The same way, teaching learning resources are just like tools a carpenter uses, or a mason uses, or any other person uses. Any kind of tools, these are tools which a teacher uses to realize the learning goals or teaching goals. So these are used to help learners to learn concept with ease and efficiency. When we say learn concept, means our objective of teaching is that our learners learn whatever we teach. Maybe concepts, maybe proposition. Concepts like animal, concepts like democracy, concepts like any kind of society, or proposition. Proposition, they are of different kinds. For example, proposition can be a law, can be a theory, can be an assumption, can be an inference. Proposition can be a fact. For example, Delhi is the capital of India. It's a fact. The sun rises in the east. It's a fact. Then Newton's law of motion, Einstein's law of relativity. So all theory of relativity. So all these are called propositions. So when we teach either concepts or propositions, we take the help of methods and tools or teaching learning resources. Teaching learning resources have been in existence in our education system for a long time. I have already told you they have been existing for a long time in some form or other. To start with, they were called as audiovisual aids. Later on, they were called as TLM. Now they are called as teaching learning. The role of teaching learning resources in the classroom is to make learning real, practical, and fun for children. What is this concept of real? As if whenever a teacher teaches, the learning process or teaching learning process is it not real? Generally, in classroom has its own merits and demerits. Merits that it is confined to four walls and there are children or students inside the classroom and a teacher teaches with the help of some textbook or with the help of some kind of resources. But what happens if you only uses your methods or techniques or any kind of strategy that you have already read in other courses? Even we have also given some kind of inputs in this course. So there are different types of methods, techniques, there are different types of strategies. But only using this, you won't make your teaching learning real. So, in order to give learner real experiences, practical experiences, you have to bring in different kinds of teaching learning resources. So, therefore, what you do, you show them charts, you show them diagrams, you show them pictures. So, all these are they are used by you to make learning experience real. Sometimes you also bring some real object, like if you are a science teacher teaching about leaves, then you bring leaves, live leaves. So to demonstrate the structure of a leaf or the structure of a flower. So that way you give some practical experience. Teachers use teaching learning resources to illustrate or reinforce a skill, a fact, or idea. I have already said that it may be a fact, it may be a concept, or it may be some kind of skill. Whenever you are showing something skill oriented learning, then you demonstrate before your teacher, before your students, you demonstrate how that skill can be acquired. When you are teaching some idea, then you take the help of some kind of audio clips by experts to illustrate that complex idea. Teaching learning resources also help in bringing novelty and freshness in classroom teaching as they relieve learners from anxiety, fear, and boredom. Generally, what happens? Why children or students they feel boredom in the classroom? You see that you might have read about forgetting. You met in psychology course, and all of us, we also experience that our attention cannot hold for a long time. Our attention to any object or any lecture or any kind of speech cannot hold for a long time. Sometimes after some time our attention gets diverted. Maybe sometimes we feel bored if there is continuous lecture. So in order to bring changes in our lecture, in our teaching, then we make variations in our stimulus. Therefore, one of the important teaching skill is stimulus variation. What does it mean? We vary our stimuli from plain lecture to discussion, from discussion to questioning, from questioning to demonstration, and along with these methodological changes or variations, we also bring variations in teaching learning resources. Sometimes we take the help of chat, we take the help of model, we take the help of audio clips, video clips, with PowerPoint presentations. So all these are very essential to make your teaching live or alive and interesting, so that the students in the classroom, they don't feel boredom, they don't have fear, they have less anxiety from your teaching. So that is the essence of teaching learning resources. Now let us further go deeper into the utility of teaching learning resources from our earlier presentation or discussion. That first thing, that it motivates learners. First thing, in any kind of teaching, as you know, that motivation is the first step of any kind of teaching learning activity. Unless a student is motivated, it's just like dragging a horse to the water. Unless the horse is thirsty or he feels to drink water, so you cannot just force on the horse. So similarly, any kind of, there should be some kind of either extrinsic motivation or intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, we have talked in our psychology course. Intrinsic, maybe some kind of biological impulse, some kind of cognitive impulse. All these human biological or cognitive impulses, they also motivate us to learn. So both extrinsic, for example, if as a teacher you motivate students that if you study this course, you will be getting a good job or you will be fruitfully employed. So this type of motivation, extrinsic motivation, motivates learners. So in teaching learning process, teaching learning resources also sometimes motivates when they get to see real object. They get to see some kind of live experiences, some kind of teaching by experts. For example, if you show a video clip of a lecture by some eminent personality, let us say, if you, while teaching a topic on Mahatma Gandhi or Quit India movement or something related to our India's independence movement, if you have some kind of audio clip or video clip, then immediately that arouses a get a lot of motivation among learners. Then when concrete objects, concrete experiences in the form of teaching learning resources, they are provided to our learners, they help in retention of information. Without teaching learning resources, when a teacher engages in classroom teaching, sometimes the teaching seems to be abstract. The learners, they are not interested in teachers' teaching. But when it is coupled with teaching learning resources like audio clip, video clip, or PPT, or any kind of simple teaching learning resources like chart, model, or diagrams, pictures, they reinforce the teaching learning inputs, and that way they help in retention of information. Then they facilitate holistic learning. As you know, holistic learning means learning in three major domains of our ability. What are these three domains? You have gone through these three domains. Cognitive domain related to knowledge dimension. Affective domain related to feeling dimension. Psychomotor domain related to skill dimension. So in all these dimensions or domain of our ability, teaching learning resources, they help. For example, when you are demonstrating how some experiment can be conducted in a lab with some kind of instrument, some kind of apparatus, then it strengthens their psychomotor ability, skill ability. Then it helps in organizing classroom teaching. As you take the help of teaching learning resources, then you are more organized, more systematic. For example, when you are introducing the topic, what type of teaching learning resources you are taking. When you are dealing with the main content or main concept, sub concept, or some kind of propositional learning, then you take the help of so many teaching learning resources. That way they help you to organize your classroom teaching in a better way than without taking their help. They facilitate change in attitude when you use teaching learning resources or live object, live recording, live video, the live experiences captured in video or audio tapes, captured in different kinds of PowerPoint presentation. So these experiences, they strengthen the teaching learning processes, as well as they create some kind of positive attitude towards learning. Then practical applications, I have already told you, when you make use of teaching learning resources with some kind of demonstration, as I have said, in case of science teaching, in case of other kinds of like geography teaching. So, for example, drawing a map or drawing some diagram in geography. So all these kind of practical applications, they can be done with the help of this teaching resources. Then, of course, learning becomes fun. It doesn't become a boredom activity or boring activity. Then the children, they take interest in your teaching. So all these things happen. Then it helps in concept formation. When you teach abstract concepts, or when you teach concepts which are not within the reach of particularly in with they are not familiar with the children, they are not familiar with the concepts, and when you teach in abstraction, the children, they find very difficult. For example, there are many objects, when you talk about them and they are not within the reach of the learner, they have not previous experiences of those concepts. Sometimes the learner, they fail to really form those concepts in an effective way. And when they are supplied with some kind of teaching learning resources, some kind of demonstration, some kind of objectification of those objects, then that helps them in concretizing their ideas about those concepts. For example, if you talk about a river system may be talked about, and students, they have some kind of experience in their locality. But if you draw some diagram or a picture of river system, tributaries, distributaries, how what is how they this the main river, then distributor is river, tributary is river. So all these, if you present in a diagram form, or if you develop some kind of picture, then that helps them to form that concept, the concept of river system in a better way. Now, these teaching learning resources, they are categorized mainly in our material. I am not referring to any other material, because in many books available outside, you may have different kinds of classification of TLMs and many others. I am not going to refer to whatever classification has been made in different books, but I am referring to the classification which have been done in our BSc 135. All these teaching learning resources we have classified mainly into two major types: non-digital learning resources and digital learning resources. So what are these non-digital learning resources? You see, as I have said earlier, that we develop so many teaching learning materials in our for the purpose of our teaching. Even earlier times, we are developing so many audiovisual aids or teaching aids. So all these teaching learning resources which are developed without the help of digital technology, where there is no intervention of digital technology, and either the teacher develops, or they are already developed, they are available in the market. As you know that many times teachers, they also obtain different types of teaching learning resources, teaching learning materials from the market. They are available. For example, in primary schools, when we are teaching small children about different kinds of animals, different kinds of trees, different kinds of fruits, different kinds of vegetables. In the market, there are posters available, uh, and all of us, we as parents, we are very familiar with, and as teachers, we are very familiar with in primary schools, in nursery schools. They take up already available resources, learning resources there. But sometimes the teachers themselves, they develop these resources, these pictures, these diagrams, or these charts by themselves. And it is very important that teachers should also develop, and not only teachers should develop, but also teachers should develop the skill of how to develop learning resources among learners. And that is that all of us, we have experienced in our school days, that our teachers, whether it is a science teacher or a geography teacher, they ask us to, for example, digestive system. Our science teacher, they ask to uh, develop a diagram of a digestive system or human skeletal system. Science teachers. Similarly, geography teacher ask that to draw the picture of a globe. So as a teacher, you can also develop these learning resources. And with these learning resources, there is no involvement of any kind of digital technology. When we say digital technology, and as we are very familiar nowadays with internet and all types of electronic gadgets like mobile, computer, and many other things, and they are powered by digital technology. And digital technology, they are basically electronic objects, and they have that inbuilt system to generate any kind of output with the help of digital application. So like mobile, like the now even you see electronic items like our TV, television, all latest televisions, they are digital television, even digital radio, and now everything has become digital. We are not going to talk about the science behind, the technology behind this technology. Our concern is that all those learning resources which are developed or which are presented through some kind of digital technology or digital platform, they are called digital learning resources. Even at present, we are engaged in some form of digital learning resources that we are using some kind of digital technology like Facebook or some kind of Google Meet, all those things which are used for webinar or digital seminar. These are all, it's very vast. Now it has become so vast, this application of digital technology, and they are coming in a big way in the teaching learning processes. Now let us talk about non-digital teaching learning resources. Mainly, these are we can say these are conventional teaching learning resources or traditional teaching learning resources, and the most important still now, that is chalkboard. In spite of all these technologies, in spite of all these teaching learning resources, whether non-digital or digital, chalkboard reigns the supreme. And I hope that all of you will agree with me. A chalkboard still has its own relevance in a classroom scenario. In a classroom learning environment, chalkboard is very important. And the teacher uses chalkboard for instant presentation of her ideas. That is very important. Then printed materials, there are different types of printed material, like your textbook, like reference material, like post, like different kinds of newspapers. So many things we have discussed in our material, printed materials. They are also some kind of teaching learning resources. Non-projected teaching learning resources. Our focus is on non-teaching teaching learning resources, then projected teaching learning resources, then low-cost teaching learning resources or material developed from available local resources. This is very important. As teachers, sometimes you can develop teaching learning materials or resources with locally available resources which are available in your locality. You can generate new teaching learning resources. They are low cost, and as B.Ed students, you are expected to develop this kind of low cost teaching learning resources. And sometimes in schools or in B.Ed training colleges, you will find our teacher trainees or student teacher, they develop a lot of teaching learning resources which are developed with the help of local resources. Then we mainly our concentration for this today's session is non-projected teaching learning resources. Will be our activity centers around this dimension of non-digital teaching learning resources. When we talk about non-projected teaching learning resources, what is meant by non-projected? There are projected teaching learning resources, projected teaching learning materials, then non-projected. Non-projected, which are not projected. Projected, which are projected. Let us first understand what are projected. Projected learning resources, teaching learning resources, for example, earlier we were using overhead projector, OHP. Nowadays, with this slide projector, this OHP is not available in most schools or institutions. Earlier, when we were teaching, when we were taught in colleges or in teaching learning institutions, they at that time teacher they were using OHP. And we have discussed, of course, though at present you may ask that this is no more used, but as experience, you must have experience of some kind of understanding that what are these earlier teaching learning processes. OHP, that time we are writing on some kind of transparency and with this color pen, and this transparency they were projected onto the wall or a white screen. So OHP is a non-projected technique or projected teaching learning. Then your film, microfilms. You know that in many schools and in many institutions earlier in 70s, 80s, there were film projectors, and the teachers they were using film projector to teach their students. So these are called projected techniques. We are not going to do any kind of activity on that because that is not possible nowadays. Even your PPT also comes under projected techniques. With recent slide projector, you can, but there digital technology is used. That is not PPT comes under the other domain of teaching learning resources. But when we talk about non-projected teaching learning resources, mainly very important is chart, map, globe, models, posters, puppets, pictures, mock-ups, diorama. All these things they have been discussed in your materials. Charts you are very familiar. We have talked about different types of charts like uh, tree chart, you have a chart like pedigree chart, like there are different types, time chart, many different types of charts. We have a line chart. So you can develop any kind of chart for your activity. For example, in history, if you want to develop a chart showing different types of dynasty, then you can develop flow chart. That is called flow chart. Then maps, you can develop the map of a particular town, if you can a particular city. So many things you can develop, and there are maps which are available in the market. They say political map, historical map. While teaching history, the history teacher takes the help of historical map. Then there are political map. Then there are physical map. Geography teacher teaches with the help of physical map. Globes are there. You are very familiar with globes. Then models. Models, there are different models. Models of eye, models of heart. Science teacher, the biology teacher uses. Model of, say, let us talk about a universe. You can also our solar system. You can develop a model of solar system. Then posters they are also very important. Non-projected posters you can develop. Puppets, and you see in many teaching learning processes puppets are used, and they are also used for teaching. But if you have skill for this, you have to have some kind of skill to develop puppet. And many teachers, for example, while teaching through dramatization, they use puppets. Puppet can be used to dramatize any kind of idea, any kind of historical event. Then pictures, they are very common. Then mock-ups. Mock-ups, they are just like a real object. It's kind of a real object. You can develop uh, like models. It also represent some kind of real object. Then diorama. Diorama also, you see here among all these non-projected teaching non some are two-dimensional, some are three-dimensional. Two-dimensional means you have this teaching learning materials in two dimension, vertical dimension and horizontal dimension. For example, picture or chart or map, they are two-dimensional. One is horizontal dimension and another is vertical dimension. But the three-dimensional, along with two-dimension, vertical and horizontal, they have their depth. Uh, for example, just like a cube is a three-dimensional. Similarly, models are three-dimensional. And similar way, diorama is also three-dimensional. Diorama is just like it has its depth, and inside this depth, you keep some models or some kind of pictures, and then some kind. You might have seen in some museum, tribal museum or something, any kind of museum. If you, for example, they have that how tribals their houses are there. How tribals the houses of tribals. For example, the they can be presented through a trigram. The villages of tribal community, the villages of in rural areas, how the villages they have been designed. If you have to teach how a particular village is designed and the different types of locations, then you can develop a diorama, and inside the depth you can place houses, roads, and then temple, all those things. And the front side is covered with some kind of transparent cover. Children they can look inside that water, and particularly they are available in different various museum, tribal museum, even in our general museum you can find this kind of diorama object. So it's a little difficult to develop, but if you are interested you can develop. Otherwise simple are two-dimensional charts, then pictures, then okay models. Of course, it takes some time. You can develop. So these are non-projected techniques or non-projected PLM. Now, what you are expected to do for this workshop, you have to choose one non-projected teaching learning resources of any one of these, depending upon your ability, skill, and then develop this non-projected material, non-projected teaching and resource. Then you have to, for developing this, you have to first choose the topic on which you are going to teach. Then what are the learning objectives of this topic? Then the kind of teaching learning resource develop, non-projected teaching learning resource developed for this topic. Then why you are developing this? For example, why are you developing a chart for this topic? Suppose you want to see, I have already told you, suppose you want to uh, teach the some kind of uh, development of dynasty in history. If you want to show to your students that this uh, family or dynastical growth of a particular ruling class, then what type of flowchart you are developing and why you have chosen flowchart, all this, all those reasons. That means you have to give your reason why you have chosen particular non-project. That is reasons and whether they are appropriate to teach the topic you have chosen, or whether this learning object, teaching learning resource is appropriate to achieve the learning objective for that topic. Very important. You see that you cannot choose any teaching learning resources for the sake of using. It must gel with the topic as well as achieving learning objective. Then after that, you can demonstrate how these teaching and resources can be used in the classroom to your colleagues in the B.Ed workshop. Then you can get feedback from the your colleagues or participants in the B.Ed workshop, as well as resource persons or experts who are there to help you in this session. They can also give feedback on your presentation, on your teaching learning resource. This is related to activity 1. Then activity 2 is developing teaching learning resources, particularly in digital teaching learning resources. And before going to the activity, and let us very briefly, we have discussed in the material block 2, we have discussed in detail, but just we can recapitulate or revisit whatever we have discussed. You see radio or audio programs. Nowadays, many audio programs like web radio program, they are also digital. Even all this audio, earlier we are having audio cassettes. Now, many audio programs you can have. You see that audio clips you can get in WhatsApp group. So many small, very just 5 minutes audio clips. Uh, then you can just on your mobile you listen to audio programs. So sometimes this latest smartphone and mobile phone, they have a very good system that whatever if you want to give a speech, you can record it and develop an audio program. You can share it with your students. Hmm. If you want some expert is coming to your school or to your institution, then you can record your conversation with the expert uh, through an audio, and then develop that audio through your mobile phone, smartphone, and you can there is possibility of editing your audio, and in terms of sound, in terms of volume, all these things while you can develop audio program with the help of recent smartphone. And once that is done, first you have to authenticate whatever you see. One thing in digital learning resource, even non-digital, everything what you have to present to your student must be authenticated, must be supported by evidence. You cannot sometimes uh, when you are sharing with any kind of content with your students, with your learners, you have to first, as teacher, you have to see that the content materials, they are authenticated, they are authentic. uh, they are not fabricated, they don't mislead your student, they don't give any kind of misunderstanding. So this is very essential in any kind of teaching learning resource. Authentic and validated and empirical experiences must be presented. No fabricated experiences should be given to our learners. Similarly, television program, now we have all digital television sets in our houses. Even in schools, they are having television sets. Even you can, the way you develop audio programs, similarly, you can also develop video programs. Now in YouTube, you see in YouTube, you get so many video programs. Every day there are so many video programs. And many people, they have developed their own YouTube channels. They record their own experiences, their own skill, and they just post it in YouTube. So many things are available nowadays. So video programs also you can develop, and you can also use it for classroom purpose. But the thing is, the most important thing I have told, that while developing any kind of digital learning resources with either video or audio, you must have a thorough understanding of how to develop this technical aspect as well as content aspect. Content aspect is very important. What type of, for example, if you are teaching geography, or you are teaching history, or if you are teaching English, or say economics, first you have to develop a script for that video or audio. That script you develop in terms of some kind of narration, in terms of kind of discussion, or in terms of some kind of presentation. Then that script, you first get it validated by the expert, yourself, as well as two, three teachers or principal of the school. Then only once your script is ready, then you can go for developing either audio or video. And when you are adding any visuals, or you are capturing any visuals to your video, you must be very careful whether the visuals they match with your script. Those things they have been discussed, and you should be careful of these aspects while developing audio video. Similarly, computer application, and most popular is MS Office. When you are developing new text in your computer, in your this MS Office software, there are so many options. You can develop text, MS Word, then you have PowerPoint presentation, then you have through the MS Excel, you can whatever data you are getting from your any whether to your concerning your teaching or your school, about your school, any kind of data, your classroom data, students data related to attendance, related to many things you can get and tabulate using this MS Excel. There are many other softwares, latest softwares, but most popular, which for the purpose of school or classroom teaching, you can have this MS Office that is very popular. Of course, there are latest version they are available. You can go through them. But the same thing I will tell again and again. Since we are presenting to our students, our learners, whatever we present, they take it for granted. They learn it. So you should ask teacher. My request to all of you that only authenticate and validated information should reach our students. Similarly, internet, there are text available, images, sound, animation. There are a lot of internet resources. When you are using all these things from internet resources, you should also be very careful that many times what happens, invalidated, unvalidated, and unauthenticated information, text, images, sound, many things, they are not suitable for our learners. They are also available on the net. But as teacher, we should be very careful while using any kind of resources, whether text, images, sound, animation from the net, and first let us authenticate, then only use. Then Web 2 technologies, they are particularly very popular now. They create and share, as I have said, whether it is in WhatsApp group, or whether it's in Facebook, people they are creating and sharing with lot of people. And if you are using like wiki or social media, then podcast, all those things, you should you can make use of all these technologies, latest technologies, for your classroom teaching, but you should be very careful of the authenticity of developing the content and sharing, and also while interacting with your students, you should also be careful of that. Whatever you are presenting to your learners, they lead to the learning objectives, achievement of learning objectives. They are based on the content of your topic or the subject that you are teaching. Similarly, e-conferences like e-meeting, web conferencing, webinar, web seminar. At present, we are doing this webinar or web conferencing with all of you. And whenever we do anything, first we have to develop in advance. Whether, for example, to present to you, I have developed this PowerPoint slides. Then we have designed this workshop. Every our colleagues they are doing like this. So and we also authenticate with the help of our materials, whatever we are presenting, that should be valid. Then mobile learning, there are several apps, educational games, educational videos, audios. So you can also make use of in your teaching, but you should be very careful, as I have said, about the authenticity of any kind of information and content that has to be shared with your students. So this is the world of digital learning resources, and as teachers now you are very familiar with digital technologies, and I hope and we hope that you go in a big way using these digital learning resources. So you can do later on so many things, but for this present workshop and present activity, we only expect you to either develop an audio clip or a video clip or PPT. We have given in our handbook these three activities. So either of these activities you can choose. Then you, uh, mm, then this after choosing the activity, then you decide about the topic to be taught to your students, the learning objectives, then uh, then this digital learning resources. Sorry, these are you have to not for non-projected. These are digital learning resources. You can change it to digital learning resources. The same way for non-projected you can do for digital learning resources. Okay. Then we come to the third activity, selection and integration of ICTs. Selection of integration of ICT is very important. Generally, we have teaching learning resources and different types of ICTs available with us. But the most important question for a teacher is to how to select and integrate these ICTs or teaching learning resources in their regular classroom teaching. That is very important. So while doing that, you have to follow certain steps. First is the kind of content to be taught or the topic to be taught. First is subject, then topic, then content to be taught. You have to first select. Then you write learning objectives for them for this topic. Then you decide the domain in which the learning objective is classified, whether it is cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, or affective domain. Then you choose about the methods, techniques to be used, what type of method or techniques to be used. Then you choose different factors while selecting ICTs. There are different types of ICTs, so whether it is non-projected or digital learning resources. Then you select the appropriate ICT, then integrate this ICT in the teaching learning process. Then we have already talked about these three domains, cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. Then cognitive, as you know, the prevalent is Bloom's taxonomy of instructional objectives, where we have knowledge level, comprehension level, application level, analysis, synthesis, evaluation level. You can formulate learning objectives in any level. You can have learning knowledge level very preliminary to know about certain facts, to know about certain information, that is knowledge level, to understand, that is at comprehensive level, apply any principle, law. So all these things are there. So this is a revised version of Bloom's taxonomy. Then you see, under affective domain, there are five major domains: receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization of the value. So, for example, participates in classroom discussion. That the student is responding. The students, they are listening attentively. They are receiving. So, for example, accepting responsibility for one's own behavior. That is organization. So all these are under affective domain. Skill domain, I have said, like lab skill, then even in a typing institute, this typing skill, stenography skill, all these are under psychomotor domains. Physical activities, physical training, so many things. Even listening ability, when you are listening to an audio, then you are watching video, this television, they are also some kind of psychomotor abilities. Now, you write a learning objective like that. Let us give one example. Learners will be able to define internal body organs in a sentence comprising not more than 15 words. So that way you can write learning objectives for the topic you have chosen for selection and integration of ICTs. Once, then what are the components of these learning objectives? Let us see. There are four components. One is learners, your students. Then here in the learning objective we have just presented, define the performance objective. Then criterion, that is standard you want for your students to learn, that is internal body organs. Then condition you are that they will define this concept in a sentence not more than 15 words. So this is the core structure of a learning objective. Now, how to select method? Once the learning objectives are decided, then you select. First, you decide the nature of content, whether they are concepts or proposition. Under proposition, whether that is a law or a hypothesis or a theory or an assumption or an inference. Then the kind of learning objective you are preparing for this. Then you look at the learner characteristics. What are their mental level? What are their background? Whether their academic performance level? These are learned. Then teacher ability, about your own ability, whether you are trained enough to make use of ICT. Suppose you are asked to use PPT. Are you able to develop PPT by yourself? Are you trained to develop PPT? Are you trained to how to make use of PPT more effectively? These are called teacher abilities. Similarly, are you able to make use of any kind of digital technology effectively? Then, of course, size of the class. In a big class, what is the technology to be used? In a small class, what is the technology? Then, what type of learning resources are available with you? That is very important when talking about method. Then, similarly, when you are choosing ICT, first inner core you see, inner circle you see, first is content, learners, objectives, and teacher. That same for student, for method. Then outer circle you see first whether that technology is available, you have accessible, that technology is accessible to you. Then whether it is cost effective, whether your institution school is in a position to afford that technology. Then whether that technology user friendly. User friendly you are able to use, as well as your students they are able to use in a friendly way. They don't find any difficulty, and it also enhance interactivity. Hmm. For example, now a lot of mobile technology they are very interactive. Then infrastructure facility, whether they have you have effective communication, whether it is communicating properly, it has some kind of pedagogic value. Then of course there are human factors, your ability, all those things we have discussed. Then time is very important. How much time a technology requires? Whether you are giving a 5 minutes audio input or a 10 minutes video input, as per your plan or integrated integration plan. With all these things, you choose or select, then you integrate. How to integrate? Let us see. This is the chart you will prepare for your activity. First, subject class, selection of the topic, learning objectives, selection of teaching learning method, selection of ICT, factors considered. In your presentation, you will include all these components. Then you will prepare a table like this, subject, class, topic, time. Then I am giving some exemplar. Then you develop your you choose your topic, then develop a detailed chart. For example, if you want to introduce the concept of, say, climate, then whether you will follow lecture come discussion or some kind of brainstorming, then what type of method? Then along with this, whether you are giving an audio clip or video clip, and what is the duration of using integrating audio video with lecture. Total you are devoting 10 minutes out of 30 minutes of your presentation. Similarly, teaching the main concepts, whether you are following question answer, discussion or group discussion or some kind of demonstration, then whether you are using PPT, how you are integrating with your PPT with question answer. So you have to justify, and for this let us say 20 minutes. Then at the end, when you are concluding your lesson or your presentation, your topic, you are concluding with the kind of some kind of revisiting, some kind of narration, recapitulation. Then you are developing some kind of PPT, and with the help of PPT you can summarizing, you are concluding, and you are devoting 5 minutes. So choose a topic, first choose a subject, then class, then topic, time of the lesson or period, maybe 35, 40 or 45 minutes, 50 as per your school schedule. Then develop the integration, selection integration of this technology or ICT into your teaching, and in this form you design some kind of chart, and with this chart you present in the plenary session, get feedback from your participants, get feedback from your resource persons, then you submit for evaluation by the WhatsApp experts. With this I come to the conclusion of my presentation. I hope that my presentation has some essence and meaning for you, and good luck to all of you.